It's Halloween season, baby, and that means another edition of 6 films that are actually scary. Over the past few years, there's been an uptick of creative horror concepts, but that optimism comes with a caveat. The majority of horror films are still really bad, whether it's due to poor acting, an incompetent script, a complete lack of horror knowledge, or laziness disguised as self-awareness. We still have to wade through a lot of shit to find the gems, but the gems are shining brighter. Like my first video, I'll briefly mention some horror movies that I really enjoyed but didn't find scary. Get Out was clever, The Invitation boasted a great ending, the It remake had some neat visuals, well, except for that one shot, I mean Jesus Christ. Jeepers Creepers is a lot of fun with a convincing brother-sister dynamic, the Babadook and Split had terrific lead performances, and while it's not a horror movie, Hitchcock's Vertigo did a good job of making me feel lost, helpless, and disoriented. All of these movies are listed in the video description below, and while they didn't frighten me, they're still good, creepy movies and worth checking out. With these out of the way, let's get to the big 6, the ones I found truly terrifying. Maybe they'll do the same for you. First up is Under the Skin, an alien seductress film starring Scarlett Johansson. Right off the bat, this film puts you on edge, with one of the most eerie openings I've ever seen. It has almost a Stanley Kubrick kind of vibe, with its use of visual storytelling and an overall sense of omniscience and unease. The film slows down to its detriment in certain sections, but every time it does, it throws something on screen that terrified me in ways words can't describe. There's such realism to the ending, both in the character design and sound, that the ensuing violence becomes all the more unsettling. The score does exactly what the title implies, and if each of us has that one movie scene that frightened us the most, there's a scene here involving rapid flesh removal that almost made me fall off my bed. Okay, this one is kind of cheating because I'm not recommending the whole film. Most of VHS is poorly executed with some astonishingly bad acting and makeup effects. However, one segment scared me so much I actually wanted it to end, and that's the first segment entitled Amateur Night. The first half of it is subtle but unnerving, showing a girl the characters meet at a bar who's just slightly off, which as a man scares the hell out of me because instinctively I want to scream at the protagonist, "No! There's something wrong with her! Run!" And it's amazing how the slightest oddities and mistakes in a person can be terrifying. When the film goes full-on ballistic gore, it's almost a relief to be free of that tension. But then, as if knowing we've relaxed, it slows down again and becomes even scarier than before. Out of all the entries on this list, this one is the most like a ride, and perfect for a group of friends.
Hey, how you doing? You alright? So you found a buddy? You coming back with us?
What are you doing sitting on the fucking ground?
What's going on?
Fucking stupid.
Dude, you clear the room out quick. Alright, so you guys are good to go. She's a fucking trip.
I agonized over whether to put this next film on the list because it's equal parts horror and drama, and there isn't a real scare until about 25 minutes. But then I thought about every Paranormal Activity, every white teens go exploring and get killed movie, and they do the same thing. So while those films fill up time with bad actors pretending not to be actors, and a 40-year-old producer's idea of adolescent dialogue, this film has well-written, engaging drama, and when the scares do arrive, I was paralyzed. And I think that's enough for the South Korean A Tale of Two Sisters to make the list. The acting is incredible, and the protective older sister, vulnerable younger sister dynamic feels genuine, but the horror is really where this film succeeds. Every horror scene is shot and paced perfectly, and my only real gripe is that I wish there were more of them. Plus, the ending has an unnecessary twist. So even though A Tale of Two Sisters is 50% horror, it's a damn good 50%. Next is It Comes at Night. Yes, that one. I won't spend much time on this one because I already reviewed it. But if you haven't seen this one, for the love of God, don't watch the trailer. Despite the film's unpopularity and the likelihood that a few of you have already hit the dislike button, I can't lie to myself and deny how on edge I felt when I watched this. Throughout the film, I found myself questioning just how depraved I would let myself become to protect my loved ones, which is a sign of how immersed I was. But the real scares come from mistrust, dread, and uncertainty that weighs on you like an anchor. You feel just as lost, just as trapped as the characters. It's nerve-wracking. I know critics bestow similar sentiments on every well-shot, boring film that comes out, and trust me, I know how bad some of these kind of movies can be. But as a horror fan, I really think you should check it out.
You didn't have to shoot him right away!
What are you talking about? They came after us! Fuck! Do you know this guy? Huh? Do you know him? You said you traveled 80 miles, you didn't see a fucking thing, and we barely get down, and this fucking happens!
I've never seen this guy before in my life! I nearly killed him myself!
Why is he telling me not to shoot him?
Because we could have got information from him! They could have been part of a bigger group nearby! Christ! I ain't lying to you!
Number 2 is a weird one. It's Alice, a 1988 Swedish interpretation of Alice in Wonderland. If you're wondering why there's no music right now, that's because the film has no soundtrack, no dialogue except for narration, and limited ambient sound. All the familiar creatures are done in stop motion, and this is that old school stop motion, not as fluid as it is now. It feels wrong, like the white rabbit who shows up and oh god, oh, what on earth? Holy shit, no. Yep, there it goes, grabbing scissors, disemboweling itself, and eating its own innards. Everything is off-kilter, the lack of sound, the choppy editing, resulting in something so incorrect, it's almost inhumane. The experience is akin to an ambient nightmare, and speaking of, do not take drugs when watching this. Seriously, this movie messed me up. Let's talk about jump scares for a moment. Out of all the horror tropes, this is one of the most maligned by critics. They often come across as lazy, and if I tried to name all the times a film went bruh, and I just sat there pissed off, I would run out of breath. Even when they make me jump, I usually feel more startled than actually scared, and I prefer them to be used as sparingly as possible in a film. So why was I absolutely terrified by a film that uses jump scares all over the place? The Thai film Shudder is a great example of how jump scares aren't universal. There's really two groups. There's the kind that lacks setup, where it's used like a crutch to substitute for atmosphere and often doesn't involve actual danger, like a dog barking or someone getting frightened by their own goddamn reflection. And then there's the good kind, where it builds, and you know it's coming, and even the character knows it's coming, and you don't want to look, but also don't want to look away, and the tension mounts until you can't stand it, and bang! You see something truly horrific, and it's actually dangerous or traumatic to the character. You get frightened not just because it's creepy, but because you know you'll probably have a nightmare. It has haunted you. These are the jump scares that earn the name, and Shudder is full of them. Beyond that, the film is like a combination of I Know What You Did Last Summer and Fatal Frame. Photography plays a key factor in many of the horror sequences. Polaroids, darkrooms, and flashbulbs all come into play and all deliver on the scares. The film is kinda cheap looking and the score is rather standard, but none of that changes the fact that Shudder really got me. It's a great Halloween rental. It picked a concept, stuck with it, played with it, and nailed it. That's how you do horror. Hell, that's how you do film.
Hey, ไอ้อ้ำมึงอยู่ไหนวะ ใครอะ เ
That wraps up my list. Have you seen any of these 6 or the honorable mentions from the start? Which films scare you the most? And whether you liked this video or not, I would love to hear your own list, so definitely comment below. Subscribe, share, I appreciate all the support. Happy Halloween.